This is SpaceTime, Series 28, Episode 62, for broadcast on the 23rd of May, 2025. Coming up on SpaceTime, a new theory to explain the birth of dark matter, the first visible light auroral activity seen on Mars, and a new type of massive X-ray explosion discovered near monster black holes. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
A new study claims that the invisible, mysterious substance known as dark matter may have formed when fast particles slowed down and got heavy. The new hypothesis, reported in the journal Physical Review Letters, suggests that dark matter, which makes up some 85% of all material in the universe, sprang up from particles that rapidly condensed, sort of like steam turning into water. Of course, scientists still have no idea exactly what dark matter is. They only know it exists because they can see its gravitational influence on normal so-called baryonic matter, stopping galaxies from spinning apart as they rotate and magnifying distant objects. The study's authors say dark matter could have formed in the early life of the universe from the collision of high-energy massless particles that lost their zip and took on an incredible amount of mass immediately upon pairing. Importantly, they claim their hypothesis can be tested using existing observational data. The extremely low-energy particles they suggest make up dark matter would have a unique signature in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the leftover energy from the Big Bang, which fills the universe today as a faint glow. The study's lead author, Robert Caldwell from Dartmouth College, says dark matter started its life as near-massless relativistic particles, similar to photons. Now that's totally different to what dark matter's thought to be, cold lumps that give galaxies their mass. Caldwell says this new idea tries to explain how dark matter went from being light to being lumpy. These particles were similar to photons, massless particles that are the basic energy or quanta of light. And it was in this early chaos that extremely large numbers of these particles bonded to each other. Caldwell and colleagues theorized that these massless particles were pulled together by the opposing directions of their spin, sort of like the attraction between the north and south poles of a magnet. As the particles cooled, an imbalance in the particles' spins caused their energy to plummet, like steam rapidly condensing into water. And the outcome was the cold, heavy particles that scientists now think constitute dark matter. Now, the most unexpected part of this mathematical model was the energy plummet that bridges the high-density energy and the lumpy low energy. Caldwell says at this stage, it's like these pairs were getting ready to become dark matter. And this phase transition helps explain the abundance of dark matter being detected today. It all sprang from high-density clusters of extremely energetic particles in the early universe. The study introduces a theoretical particle that would have initiated the transition to dark matter. Thing is, scientists already know that electrons can undergo a similar transition. See, at low temperatures, two electrons can form what are known as Cooper pairs that can conduct electricity without resistance and are the active mechanism in certain superconductors. In fact, the authors cite the existence of Cooper pairs as evidence that the massless particles in their theory would have been capable of condensing into dark matter. They look towards superconductivity for clues as to whether a certain interaction could cause energy to drop so suddenly, and Cooper pairs are the proof that this mechanism exists. The metamorphosis of these particles from the cosmic equivalent of a double espresso into day-old oatmeal explains the vast deficit in the energy density of the current universe compared to its early days. Scientists know that density's declined since the Big Bang as the universe's energies expanded outwards. But the author's new idea also accounts for the increase in the density of mass. They say structures get their mass due to the density of cold dark matter. But there also has to be a mechanism wherein energy density drops close to what we see around us today. And their theory suggests that the particle pairs entered a cold, nearly pressureless state as they got slower and heavier. And this characteristic would make them stand out in the cosmic microwave background radiation. The cosmic microwave background radiation has been studied by several large-scale projects. And the authors say both existing and future data from these projects could be used to test their ideas. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, the first visible light auroras seen on Mars, and a new type of massive X-ray explosion discovered near monster black holes. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. NASA's Mars Perseverance rovers made history by detecting visible light auroral activity on another planet for the first time. The detections were made during March last year, near the peak of the current solar cycle, and they were confirmed by NASA's Mars-orbiting MAVEN spacecraft. The event, reported in the journal Science Advances, was triggered by a massive solar flare on the Sun which generated a coronal mass ejection, a huge explosion of gas and magnetic energy that carries vast amounts of solar energetic particles out into space. And this solar activity led to stunning auroral displays across the solar system, including on Mars, where the 6-wheeled car-sized Perseverance rover saw them in the skies above Jezero crater. The study's lead author, Elise Knudsen from the University of Oslo, says the discovery opens up new possibilities for auroral research and confirms that aurorae could be visible to future astronauts on the Martian surface. On Earth, aurorae form when solar particles interact with the planet's global magnetic field, funneling these particles towards the poles along magnetic field lines, during which time they collide with atoms and molecules in the Earth's atmosphere, emitting light. The most common colour seen in earthly aurora is green, caused by collisions with oxygen atoms. For years, scientists have theorised that green light auroras would also exist on Mars, but suggested they would be much fainter and harder to capture than the green auroral activity seen on Earth. Now, due to the red planet's lack of a global magnetic field, Mars has a different type of auroral activity to what we see on Earth. These include solar energetic particle aurorae, which MAVEN discovered in 2014. These occur when super-energetic particles from the Sun hit the Martian atmosphere, causing a reaction that makes the atmosphere glow across the entire night sky. Now, while MAVEN's already observed solar energetic particle aurorae in ultraviolet light from Mars, the phenomenon's never been observed in visible light from the ground. Since solar energetic particle aurorae typically occur during solar storms, which increase during solar maximum, like what we're in now, Knudsen and colleagues set their sights on capturing visible images and spectra of solar energetic particle aurorae from the Martian surface at the very peak of the Sun's current solar cycle. Through modelling, Knudsen determined the optimal angle for the Perseverance rover's SuperCam spectrometer MassCam-Z camera to successfully observe the solar energetic particle aurorae in visible light. And with this observational strategy now in place, it all came down to the timing and understanding the physics of coronal mass ejections. Scientists with the MAVEN mission determined there was a noticeable solar storm heading towards the red planet in March 2024, which should arrive a few days after the initial eruption on the Sun. And so they issued a Mars Space Weather Alert notification to all currently operating Mars missions. A few days later, that coronal mass ejection impacted Mars, providing a light show for the rover to capture and showing the aurorae to be nearly uniform right across the sky. To confirm the presence of solar energetic particles during the auroral observations, the authors looked to MAVEN's solar energetic particle instrument, which was additionally corroborated by data from the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter. That data from both orbital missions confirmed that the rover team on the ground had managed to successfully catch a glimpse of the phenomenon in the very narrow time window available. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, a new type of massive X-ray explosion discovered near monster black holes, and later in the science report, confirmation that artificial intelligence chatbots exaggerate the extent and scope of research in scientific papers. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. This episode of SpaceTime is brought to you by NordVPN, our official VPN partners and the ones we trust right here on the show. These days, it doesn't take a hacker in a dark room to compromise your online safety. In fact, every time you connect to a public Wi-Fi at a cafe, an airport, or even a hotel, your data could be exposed. Passwords, email, and even your personal information is all vulnerable. And that's where NordVPN comes in. NordVPN protects you with world-class encryption, keeping your online activities private and your data safe from prying eyes, no matter where you are. Plus, with NordVPN, you can stream your favorite programs securely, access content globally, and even avoid annoying bandwidth throttling. And right now, we have an exclusive deal for SpaceTime listeners, up to 74% off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 extra months free. And it all comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So protect your data and protect your freedom. Just head to nordvpn.com/Stuart Gary. That's nordvpn.com/Stuart Gary. Or use the code name Stuart Gary at the checkout. Your gateway to a safer, freer internet with NordVPN. And now, it's back to our show. Astronomers have for the first time probed the physical environment of a recently discovered new type of repeating X-ray outburst found to exist near monster supermassive black holes. These massive X-ray flares have been named quasiperiodic eruptions. Astronomers recently observed these events in a system named Ansky, which is located in a galaxy about 300 million light-years away in the constellation Virgo. This event was the first indication that something unusual might be happening. It was the 8th, and so far most powerful quasiperiodic eruption source discovered, setting the record in terms of both timing and duration, with eruptions every 4.5 Earth days, and with each eruption lasting around a day and a half. The observations were achieved by NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, or NISA telescope, which is mounted aboard the International Space Station. Additional information was provided by NASA's Swift Space Telescope and NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, as well as the European Space Agency's XMM Newton Space Telescope. The study's lead author, Joanne Charaborty from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, says these quasiperiodic eruptions are both mysterious and intensely interesting. One of the most intriguing aspects is their quasiperiodic nature. See, astronomers are still trying to develop the methodologies and frameworks needed to understand exactly what's causing them. The findings, reported in the Astrophysical Journal, suggest that these eruptions occur in systems where a relatively low-mass object passes through the disk of gas surrounding a supermassive black hole that holds hundreds of thousands to billions of times the mass of the Sun. When the lower mass object punches through the disk, its passage drives out expanding clouds of hot gas, which astronomers then observe as quasiperiodic eruptions in X-rays. Astronomers think the eruption's quasiperiodicity occurs because the smaller object's orbit isn't perfectly circular and spirals towards the black hole over time. Also, the extreme gravity close to the black hole warps the very fabric of space-time, altering the object's orbit so they don't close on themselves with each cycle. Scientists' current understanding suggests that these eruptions repeat until the disk disappears or until the orbiting object disintegrates, either of which could take several years. Ansky's extreme properties may be due to the nature of the disk around its supermassive black hole. In most quasiperiodic eruption systems, a supermassive black hole likely shreds the passing star, creating a small disk very close to itself. But in Ansky's case, the authors think the disk is much larger and can involve objects further away, creating the longer timescales observed. NISA's position on the International Space Station allows it to observe Ansky about 16 times every day, and this frequency of observations was critical in detecting the X-ray fluctuations that revealed Ansky was producing quasiperiodic eruptions. The authors used data from NISA and XMM Newton to map the rapid evolution of the ejected material driving the observed eruptions in unprecedented detail by studying variations in X-ray intensity during the rise and fall of each eruption. They found that each impact resulted in roughly about a quarter Jupiter's worth of mass, reaching expansion velocities around 15% the speed of light. And NISA was then able to measure the size and temperature of the roughly spherical bubble of debris as it expanded. This report from NASA TV.
From its perch on the International Space Station, NASA's NICER X-ray telescope has helped map a mysterious cosmic event for the first time. It happened in a galaxy 300 million light-years away. Astronomers call this system Ansky. Ansky produces a type of recurring X-ray outburst called a QPE, or quasiperiodic eruption. These events were just recently discovered. Ansky is only the 8th known QPE emitter and is the most energetic to date. Some scientists think QPEs occur when a lower mass object orbits a supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy. When the smaller object passes through the disk of gas around the monster black hole, it produces a cloud of debris that causes an X-ray outburst. The low mass object isn't on a circular orbit. and its motion is affected by the distortion of space-time near the black hole, so the eruptions don't repeat over the same exact time frame, which is what makes them quasi-periodic. Ansky's outbursts are the longest of all the QPEs astronomers have studied, with eruptions every 4.5 days or so that last approximately 1.5 days. That may be caused by a larger disk engulfing an object farther away. Neisser's observations of Ansky allowed scientists to probe the gas ejected from the disk after each collision. The gas expands, reaching velocities about 15% the speed of light, and produces the X-rays we see as QPEs. Neisser and other missions will continue to study Ansky and other QPEs, helping astronomers reveal their secrets.
This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with a science report. A new study has shown that artificial intelligence chatbots driven by large language models tend to exaggerate the scope of research when summarizing scientific papers. A report in the journal of the Royal Society Open Science analysed 4,900 chatbot-generated summaries of scientific abstracts. These abstracts themselves are short summaries found at the start of a scientific paper. They found the artificial intelligence was 5 times more likely to overgeneralize findings than a human expert. Now, the authors didn't ask the chatbots to write the summaries for an expert audience, but they did request systematic details and faithful abstract summaries in their prompts. Ironically, prompting for accuracy tended to increase overgeneralizations, and newer larger language models were far less accurate than the older ones. In other words, AI is getting better at exaggerating and lying. Engineers have invented a small neuromorphic device that detects hand movement, stores memories, and processes information very much like a human brain, but without the need for an external computer. A report in the journal Advanced Materials Technologies claims the innovation marks a strong step towards enabling instant visual processing in autonomous vehicles, as well as advanced robotics and other next-generation applications for improved human interactions. Neuromorphic vision systems are designed to use similar analog processing to our brains, which can greatly reduce the amount of energy needed to perform complex visual tasks compared with the digital technologies being used today. Scientists have discovered the oldest ancestor for all living Australian tree frogs. A report in the journal Vertebrate Paleontology has shown that the newly identified species has distinct links with tree frogs found in South America. Now, previously, scientists believed Australian and South American tree frogs separated from each other about 33 million years ago. But the new discovery shows the split actually happened much earlier, about 55 million years ago. And now for the silliest story of the week. A former CIA agent claims he was taught to use his psychic abilities to undertake a remote viewing of the red planet Mars in its ancient past. And he claims he saw human civilizations there that were aware they were destined to face extinction. The trouble is, Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptics points out that while astronomers have mapped every inch of the Martian surface by satellite, they're yet to find any evidence of ancient ruins. Even the famous face on Mars Sphinx and nearby pyramid-shaped structures all turned out to be nothing more than the simple play of light and shade on natural rock formations.
The CIA did real tests of psychics during the 70s, 80s.
This is the remote viewing stuff.
Yeah, remote viewing, the power to influence something else like telekinesis, move things, various things. As they would, and if you're really a follower of the CIA, as they probably should, be trying out any avenue they can find to see if there's something to an advantage to their side. Right. And they looked at the psychic powers for a number of years and then after a while said, nothing worth looking at here, not even anything that's sort of a half inkling that could be developed. So there's nothing there to look at. And they spent a lot of money for it. And ever since then, people said, well, the CIA looked at it, it must be true. No, they looked at it, they try everything. They tried looking at people who can knock goats over with their thoughts. They look at all sorts of strange things just in case one of them proved true. And in a way, this is proof that it's not true because they stopped. And they handed over all the information about it. It's available. Pay for the CIA investigations of UFOs. They readily handed over the information.
And made a movie about it.
Several. So This was someone who was supposedly was one of the subjects being tested by the CIA. It's called Project Stargate, was the actual program that was looking at remote viewing, which is seeing things from a distance. And this fellow claimed he could also see into the past, into the future. He was described himself as remote viewer number one. So, wow, he must have been the best or the first. We had high opinions of himself. And he reckoned he was given coordinates of a spot on Mars and the notation 1 million years BC and a location, and he spotted buildings, a pyramid, and he spotted humans, actual humans, but very tall humans, who were looking very sad and very miserable because they were just about to be wiped out by some planetoid that brushed past Mars and stole the atmosphere from Mars. It would have happened very quickly, I think. They must have had some warning. So the visions he saw were inside this pyramid, looked very sparse, and a lot of people looking sad, and then they were gone. So he said there was definitely life on Mars. It's human, not even humanoid, it's human, big, tall, twice the size of us, living in giant pyramids. The CIA seriously looking at this, trying to find examples, evidence, and they couldn't find any. Okay, whether you believe the CIA or not, this guy claims he did find something, he told them, and of course instantly the evidence was covered up. So he's come back here 50 years later, talk about what he discovered then as remote viewer number one. There's no way to prove it, obviously. 1 million years BC is a very, very strange figure to choose. Seeing tall humanoids.
Sounds like you just saw the movie Avatar.
Yeah, quite possibly. It's just all too 1950s science fiction sort of thing. As much as we all love 1950s science fiction, it's not necessarily an accurate depiction of the way things are.
That's Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptics. And that's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from SpaceTimeWithStuartGarry.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to SpaceTimeWithStuartGarry.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.